The mind is the most powerful tool you have, but you almost never use it consciously. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning until you fall asleep at night, a voice accompanies you. It comments on what you do, interprets what happens, judges your mistakes, anticipates dangers, and decides what each experience means. That voice is your inner dialogue, and even though no one else can hear it, it is silently shaping the way you think, feel, act, and perceive your own life. That's why I want you to ask yourself a tough question. Does the way you talk to yourself drive you forward or hold you back? Does it bring you closer to the person you want to be, or does it keep you trapped in your fears? Because every time you tell yourself, I can't, I'm not enough, I always fail, or this isn't for me, you're not just describing a moment. You're reinforcing an identity. You're teaching your mind what to expect from you. But the opposite also happens. When you tell yourself, I can learn, I'm capable of moving forward, this obstacle doesn't define my story. Or, I haven't mastered it yet, but I'm getting better. You start to open up possibilities that you couldn't see before. In the end, a big part of who you become is born from the words you repeat when no one is listening. Your mind pays attention to those words. If you constantly imagine failure, your body reacts as if the danger is already present. If you anticipate humiliation, loss, or rejection, you start to behave defensively. You become more rigid, more insecure, and less willing to act. On the other hand, when you visualize a goal and talk to yourself as someone capable of achieving it, you start to direct your attention towards solutions, resources, and opportunities that you previously ignored. It's not about magic, it's about focus. Your inner dialogue determines what you look for, what you interpret, and what you do next. And that ends up altering your reality. Imagine two people facing the same failure. The first one says to himself, I knew I wasn't capable. This proves that I'll never make it. The second one says to himself, this went wrong. I need to understand why and do it better next time. The external situation is the same, but the inner story is completely different. One person turns the mistake into a verdict, the other turns it into information. One stops, the other learns. That's how change begins. Not when life stops being hard, but when you stop using your words to fight against yourself. I know someone might think it's easy to say, but you don't know my situation. My problems are real, and that's true. There are real losses, there are illnesses, debts, betrayals, uncertainty, and moments when life seems to exceed our ability to respond. Changing your inner dialogue doesn't eliminate those facts. It also doesn't mean denying the pain, pretending everything is fine, or repeating empty phrases while your reality falls apart. It means choosing an inner voice that helps you respond, instead of a voice that drags you down even further. Your circumstances influence you, but they don't have to define your entire identity. There is always a difference between what happens and what you tell yourself about what happens. In that space, your power lives. You can talk to yourself like a victim condemned by your circumstances. Or you can talk to yourself like someone who, even though wounded, still has the ability to choose their next step. When you change the meaning you give to an experience, your emotion changes. When your emotion changes, your behavior changes. And when your behavior changes consistently, your life begins to take a different direction. But before you transform your internal dialogue, you need to listen to it. Over the next few days, pay attention to the voice that appears when you make a mistake, when you look at yourself in the mirror, when someone rejects you, when you think about money, when you try to learn something, or when you imagine your future. Don't try to correct it immediately. First, observe it. Ask yourself, is this voice respectful to me? Does it help me understand or just punish me? Is it stating a fact or exaggerating a conclusion? Does it guide me toward a solution or does it trap me in the problem? Many people find that they talk to themselves in a way they would never use with someone they love. They insult themselves for making mistakes. They humiliate themselves for not moving forward faster. They turn a bad day into a bad life. They turn a mistake into an identity. They say, I'm a failure, when the truth is this didn't turn out the way I expected. They say, I'll never learn, when in reality they're going through the uncomfortable part of any learning process. They say, nobody values me just because one person didn't know how to see my worth. The problem with this kind of language is that it turns temporary situations into permanent truths. That's why the first change isn't about going from a negative phrase to an exaggerated affirmation that you can't even believe. It's about speaking to yourself with greater precision. Instead of saying, I'm useless, say, I made a mistake and I need to correct it. Instead of, I'll never succeed, say, I haven't found the right strategy yet. Instead of, I can't handle this, say, this is overwhelming me right now, but I can break it down into steps. Instead of, I always mess everything up, say, there's a pattern I need to understand. Notice the difference. The new phrase doesn't deny the difficulty, but it doesn't condemn you either. It gets you moving again. The most powerful way to talk to yourself isn't always the most positive one. It's the one that allows you to take action. That's why phrases like, I'm learning, I can improve, I'm going to try it another way, and this moment doesn't define my worth are usually more transformative than a grand affirmation that your mind rejects. Effective self-talk should create a bridge between where you are and where you want to go. Not a fantasy, a bridge. And that bridge is built with repetition. Your old patterns won't disappear just because you recognize them once. They have been reinforced for years. They will show up automatically because they are familiar, not because they are true. When the voice comes up that says you're not enough, you don't need to go to war against it. Acknowledge it, and then respond. That's an old way of thinking. Today I choose to act differently. It's like changing the channel. The previous signal still exists, but you decide which one to listen to. The more you practice a new way of talking to yourself, the more accessible it becomes. At first, you might feel uncomfortable, artificial, or even ridiculous. That doesn't mean it doesn't work, it just means it's not a habit yet. You can reinforce it by writing. You can say it out loud. You can remember it before a difficult conversation, a presentation, a decision, or a moment of fear. Don't wait until you feel confident to speak to yourself confidently. In many cases, confidence comes after you act from a firmer inner voice. The beginning of the day is especially important. What's the first thing you tell yourself when you wake up? I'm tired. I don't want to face another day. Everything is going to go wrong? I don't feel like it. That first thought can become the emotional tone for the next few hours, but you can interrupt it. You don't need to get up proclaiming that it will be the best day of your life. It's enough to choose a direction. Today I'm going to be present. Today I will respond calmly. Today I will do what is within my reach. Today I will take a real step toward what I want. These phrases don't control the world. They prepare you to engage with it in a different way. And the same thing happens when a challenge comes up. If you tell yourself this is too difficult, your mind will look for a way out. If you tell yourself, what part of this can I actually solve? Your mind will look for a door. The questions you ask yourself are part of your internal dialogue, and often they have more power than affirmations. Why does this always happen to me? It directs your attention toward helplessness. What can I learn from this? It directs your attention toward growth. What's wrong with me? It forces you to look for flaws. What do I need to understand or change? It guides you toward an answer. And if I fail, imagine the worst outcome. What will happen if I never try? It reveals the cost of staying still. Your mind works in the direction you give it. That's why you must pay attention not only to your answers, but also to your questions. Now think about a goal you truly desire. Maybe you want to start a project, improve your health, repair a relationship, organize your finances, or develop a skill you've always put off. How do you talk to yourself about that goal? Do you say, is it too late? Do I not have what it takes? People like me don't achieve that. Or you say, I can start with what I have. I can learn what I don't know yet. I'm going to move forward even if I don't feel completely prepared. The way you talk to yourself doesn't guarantee the outcome, but it does determine whether you'll have the mindset to pursue it. If you define something as impossible, you stop looking for ways. If you define it as difficult but possible, your mind starts to organize resources. This is crucial. Speaking to yourself in a powerful way doesn't mean just repeating wishes. It also involves commitment. It's not enough to say, I'm going to make it. You have to tell yourself, I'm going to take consistent action, even when the emotion fades. It's not enough to say, I want to change. You have to tell yourself, I'm willing to tolerate the discomfort that change requires. The right internal dialogue doesn't replace action. It guides it. When a setback comes, because it will come, avoid turning it into a prophecy. Don't say, this proves that I can't. Say, this obstacle is part of the process. I need to adjust something. Don't say, I went back to square one. Say, now I know a way that doesn't work. Don't say, I lost all my progress. Say, I had a setback, but I haven't lost what I've learned. Resilient people don't go through life without failures. They've learned to frame them in a way that helps them keep going. Every expert was once a beginner. Everyone who masters a skill went through confusion, mistakes, and moments of doubt. The difference isn't just in talent, it's also in the language they use to interpret those stages. A fixed mindset says, I'm not good at this. A growth mindset says, I'm not good at this yet. That word yet changes your whole outlook. Your inner dialogue also defines the relationship you have with yourself. And that relationship sets the standard for many external relationships. When you constantly put yourself down, it becomes harder for you to set boundaries. It's like your needs don't matter. You accept behaviors that hurt you. When you speak to yourself with respect, you start to recognize more clearly what kind of treatment you deserve. Telling yourself, I deserve to be treated with dignity, is not arrogance. It's a boundary. Telling yourself, I can express what I need clearly. It prepares you to communicate without aggression and without disappearing. Telling yourself, I don't have to betray myself to be accepted, protects your authenticity. The way you talk to yourself indirectly teaches others how they can treat you. It also affects your body. When you repeat, I'm exhausted, I'm weak, or something bad is going to happen, you increase the tension you carry through the day. This doesn't mean denying an illness, ignoring symptoms, or replacing medical care with positive thinking. It means not adding an extra layer of mental hostility to a physical difficulty. You can speak to your body with care. Thank you for supporting me. I'm going to rest because I need it. I'm going to take care of what I eat, how I breathe, and how I live. I can ask for help. That language doesn't promise miracles, but it changes the relationship you bring to decisions about your well-being. The same thing happens with stress. When you tell yourself, I can't handle this, your sense of threat increases. When you say, I'm going to handle one thing at a time, you turn the chaos into a sequence. When you say, I need to stop and regain clarity, you allow your mind to come out of reactive mode. In moments of pressure, a brief phrase can bring you back to center. Breathe. Observe. Decide. Your endless dialogue also affects your productivity. If you keep repeating, "I'm overwhelmed, everything seems like one impossible mass," change the question. What is the next concrete action? Don't try to solve your whole life in a minute. Choose the next step. I'm going to work on this for 20 minutes. I'm going to finish one task before starting another. I'm going to make progress, not make it perfect. These phrases create a more useful mental environment than constant self-demand. Creativity also depends on the way you talk to yourself. If you say, "I'm not creative," you close the door before exploring. If you say, "I can look at this problem from another angle," you invite your mind to look for new connections. Creativity rarely emerges when a voice threatens, ridicules, and demands immediate perfection. It needs curiosity. What would happen if I tried it another way? What idea did I dismiss too soon? How would someone with less fear solve it? The right voice doesn't give you all the answers. It keeps you with the question long enough for an answer to appear. Your relationship with money is also influenced by your inner dialogue. Telling yourself, "I'll always be poor," "I'm terrible with money," or "I never have enough" can become an identity that justifies impulsive decisions, avoidance, and resignation. But it's also useless to repeat that money comes easily while ignoring your habits. A more powerful way to talk to yourself would be, "Can I learn to manage my resources better? I'm going to look at my numbers honestly. I can make smarter decisions than I did yesterday. My current situation doesn't define my financial future forever." Abundance doesn't begin by denying reality. It begins by regaining the ability to act on it. Your inner dialogue also determines how you age psychologically. When you say, "I'm too old to learn," you turn age into a mental barrier. When you say, "I can keep learning as long as I'm willing to practice," you stay open to growth. The mind needs challenges, curiosity, and new questions. Don't tell it that its time is up while you're still alive. Talk to yourself as someone who can still be surprised, change your mind, and develop new abilities. You should also pay attention to how you talk to yourself when facing change. Life will change with or without your permission. People will come and go. Plans will fall apart. Your identity will go through stages. What seems certain today can change. If you tell yourself, "I can't stand uncertainty," every change becomes a threat. If you tell yourself, "I don't know what will happen, but I trust my ability to respond," you don't eliminate uncertainty, but you regain inner stability. You don't need to know exactly how everything will end. You need to remember that you'll be able to find yourself along the way. Forgiveness also begins as an internal conversation. There are people who repeat the same accusation against themselves for years. "I should have known. I ruined my life. I don't deserve to move on." Acknowledging responsibility is necessary, but punishing yourself forever doesn't fix the past. You can tell yourself, "I'm taking responsibility for what I did. I'm learning what this experience came to teach me. I'll fix what I can still fix. And I won't make forgetting my worst mistake. I won't forget. I won't forget. I won't forget. I'm going to forget. I won't forget." And when it comes to others, your inner dialogue can feed resentment for years or help you let go of the burden. You won't always be able to reconcile. It won't always be safe to go back. But you can decide that person won't keep occupying your mind every day. I let go of what I can no longer change. I protect my boundaries without continuing to feed the hatred. My peace doesn't depend on the past being different. These words can open up a new inner space. Criticism is another test. If you interpret every comment as a humiliation, you'll get defensive. If you tell yourself, "I can listen without turning this into a condemnation," feedback becomes information. Not all criticism is fair. Not every opinion deserves to get inside you. But you can ask, is there anything true here that I can use? What part should I discard? Can I improve without putting myself down? You don't need to hate your past self to grow. It requires seeing your earlier self honestly. And remember something else. Your inner dialogue doesn't just affect the way you treat yourself. It also affects the way you treat others. A person who lives under a cruel inner voice often projects that harshness. A person who learns to correct themselves without destroying themselves is more capable of supporting, listening, and understanding others. Compassion begins within, but it doesn't end there. Speaking to yourself with respect doesn't make you weak. It makes you less dependent on judgment, less reactive, and more able to stand your ground without needing to attack. Now, don't turn your inner dialogue into another form of pressure, an impossible demand. You don't need to monitor every thought. You don't need to feel guilty every time a negative phrase appears. It's not about perfection. It's about direction. Some days you'll slip back into old patterns. You'll criticize yourself. You'll anticipate the worst-case scenario. You'll doubt yourself. When you notice it, don't add a second blow by saying, I can't even think straight. Just come back. I'm punishing myself again. I'm going to talk to myself in a more helpful way. Every time you make that correction, you're strengthening a new pathway. Change happens in those small and almost invisible moments. When you decide not to insult yourself for a mistake. When you replace a judgment with a question. When you give yourself permission to rest. When you remember that an emotion is not a prophecy. When you tell yourself the truth without cruelty. When you act even though the voice of fear is still present. That is progress. And over time, the voice you once had to consciously build starts to appear on its own. Not because life is perfect, but because you have practiced a different way of meeting it. I want you to make a simple commitment starting today. Listen to the words you use when you talk to yourself. Don't automatically accept every thought as the truth. Question the phrases that diminish you. Replace absolutes with possibilities. Talk about your mistakes as experiences, not as your identity. Talk about your goals with commitment, not just with desire. Speak to yourself as you would to someone whose future truly matters to you, because your future depends in part on that conversation. When you're afraid, don't tell yourself that you're weak. Tell yourself, fear is here, but it won't decide for me. When you fail, don't say that everything is over. Tell yourself, this hurts, but I can still learn. When you feel lost, don't demand to see the whole path. Tell yourself, I just need to find the next step. When you doubt your worth, remember, I don't have to prove my worth at every moment. My worth remains even if someone doesn't see it. And when a part of you says it's too late, answer back. As long as I can choose a new word and a new action, there's still room to move. Your words shape your attention. Your attention shapes your decisions. Your repeated decisions shape your character. And your character ends up playing a part in the reality you build. That's why you shouldn't underestimate the silent conversation you have with yourself. It can be the chain that immobilizes you, or it can become the voice that reminds you who you are when everything seems to fall apart. Speak to yourself with kindness, but also with firmness, with hope, but also with honesty, with patience, but without using patience as an excuse not to act. Don't just tell yourself that you are capable. Prove it to yourself with the next step. Don't just tell yourself that you deserve a better life. Start making decisions that respect that life. Stop saying you're unstoppable. Learn to get back up every time you stop. Your transformation doesn't begin when the world says the right things about you. It begins when you stop repeating the words that keep you small. The next phrase you say to yourself matters. Make it true. Make it useful. Make it open a door. Because you become little by little. You learn from the person you listen to. Everyone listens to reality biology, what Plaza Sottle